Exit.
Africa, a beautiful continent, richly endowed with so much potential, mineral resources, and immense wealth in its people. Yet, this continent, with all its beauty and endowment, has largely been an underdog, and there's so much blame to pass around. Who done it, they say? With roughly 500 million of its population under the age of 35, Africa is currently the world's youngest continent. What are we going to do with this? We must change the African narrative. We must engage to orchestrate new and positive outcomes and solve the socio-political and socio-economic problems of the continent. So you're young, on campus, want to be the change? Join the vanguard. Introducing the Africa for Africa Youth Initiative, maximizing Africa's resources.
Wow, wow, wow. You're welcome from all around the African continent. You're welcome. I'd like to especially thank our Executive Director, Mr. Chike Ome, for the opportunity to anchor this segment of the Africa Development Discourse. We're going to pray. Father, in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, we thank you, we honor you, we give you praise. Thank you, Father, for another opportunity like this. Thank you, Father, for everything that we will be learning here today. Thank you, Father, for the inspiration, the wisdom that would come to us as a result of this training. We thank you, Lord. Yes, for we will live here better than we came in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, and we'll live here as game changers in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, and the continent will never remain the same again. Father, we thank you. Yes, we receive all the words, we receive the trainings and the inspirations of today, and we change our words with it in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. We thank you, we honor you. In Jesus' precious name we pray. Amen.
Hello everyone, and you're welcome to Africa Development Discourse. I would like to welcome all our delegates from Nigeria, Cameroon, Ghana, Rwanda, South Africa, Lesotho, among several African nations, young people from various tertiary institutions in our great continent. I also like to acknowledge the visionary of the Africa for Africa Youth Initiative in the person of the highly esteemed Reverend Dr. Chris Oyakhilome, who put us together and has given us a mandate to build the Africa of our dreams. Also, I'd like to acknowledge the Executive Director of the Africa for Africa Youth Initiative in the person of Mr. Chike Ome. Thank you, sir, for putting this program together, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to anchor today's discourse. Today, being the 25th of May, is Africa Day. And what a better way to celebrate the mother continent than to have this event with our development at the core. The African continent is the second largest continent with arable lands. The continent is also the second most populous continent with majority of its demography made up of young people. The continent is endowed with a wide range of natural resources, biodiversity, geographical beauties, and a wide range of mineral resources, including 90% of the world's cobalt, 90% of its platinum, 50% of gold, and over 90% of chromium. 1/3 of the world's uranium is resident in Africa, amongst diamond and several others. But in spite of these natural endowments, Africa remains the world's poorest and least developed continent with a low concentration of wealth. Amongst identified issues are corrupt government, societal conflict, high level of illiteracy, and I'd like to add the incredible gap between what's obtainable in education and societal reality. This is where the online conference plays a role. Thankfully, this present situation in Africa is not a death sentence, as there are records of continents and nations that have risen from poverty to remarkable development. This is our hope for Africa. Hence, this event, to stimulate and stir the minds of youths in the direction of solutions and answers while looking within amidst the seeming chaos. The ADD is a program organized by the Africa for Africa Youth Initiative that engages young people across tertiary institutions through educative topical discourses or lectures in the bid to get them aware of our current socio-economic realities and stimulate their minds to take advantage of the ardent opportunities. Through the creation of solutions to identify challenges and in the process contribute significantly to the development of our continent. This second edition of the ADD is organized to sensitize African youths on how they can effect changes and solve real-life problems like the continual importation of finished products such as iron ore, amongst others, despite the rich possession of natural mineral resources. This is possible through the practical application of their courses of study, thereby spurring industrialization and driving development in Africa. So strap up for a mind-stimulating discourse. Take notes, highlight action points, and remember, Africa will be built by Africans. So, once again, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us in this program. And right away, we're going to go over to a special, inspiring documentary. So sit back, listen, and get inspired. Thank you.
Africa is blessed with an abundance of natural resources like diamond, sugar, salt, gold, iron, cobalt, uranium, copper, bauxite, silver, rubber, wood, petroleum, and lots more. This quite naturally should translate to an economic boom, especially when Africa's youth population is factored into the equation. Youth in Africa constitutes 19% of the global youth population, more than youth percentage of Europe. Africa is, however, largely underdeveloped economically. Of the nearly 600 million youths in Africa, 60% do not contribute to the economy. The state of economic underdevelopment in Africa is not due to a lack of capital, but because of a lack of knowledge and skills to enhance productivity and increase national output. The only veritable tool to change this narrative and ensure Africa maximizes its abundance of resources and experiences an economic transformation is education. Economically successful continents hold advantages over Africa, and like all successful corporations, education and training are big reasons why. A well-trained population tends to produce more and ensure a healthy economy. A nation with a more educated population will see their economy grow faster. Investment in education is investment in human capital development. Economic growth depends on the knowledge and skills of the labor supply. Economies with more skilled laborers capitalize on the development of more value-added industries like high-tech manufacturing. This is sadly not the case in Africa. Education in Africa at the moment is not qualitative enough to produce the requisite workforce to harness Africa's resources. With problems of poor quality environment like infrastructure, overcrowding, violence, sanitation, poor quality content like outdated curriculum and inadequate materials, and poor quality processes like the use of untrained teachers and poor school management, the human capital of Africa is largely underdeveloped and labor supply is not operations ready after completing their education. Economic transformation continues to elude the African continent mainly because of human capital constraints in form of knowledge, skills, and technical know-how to exploit natural resources and promote economic growth. Formal education and training systems in Africa need to become adaptable to the changing needs of society in order to capture and sustain student interest and supply operations-ready labor force to the economies of African nations. How can Africa transform its education in order to deliver a labor force that effectively impacts on the economy? Changing the educational system. The world today is changing rapidly, but our curriculum has stayed the same. The current system of education was designed in the industrial age mainly to produce factory workers. This industrial age mentality of mass control and mass production is still embedded in our education system. Students are rewarded for doing exactly as they are told. In today's world, you can only go so far by simply doing as you're told. The modern world places a high value on creativity and the ability to clearly communicate ideas and collaborate with others. Our education system needs to be restructured to help develop these skills and independent thought. Our education system does not allow for autonomy and independence in decision making. In the real world, every individual manages their time with regards to what to do and when to do it. In our education system, students are expected to follow strictly what is laid down for them to do, and this creates a conditioning of the mind that breeds boredom and demotivation towards academia. Our system of education should be structured to create autonomy, as that is one of the hallmarks of successful individuals. The standardization of our education system means that every individual learns the same thing, same time, and in the same manner. This standardized system has no regard for the uniqueness of each individual. Every individual has unique passions and interests. The education system should be restructured to enable students find and develop their passions. The education system should help each individual answer basic questions like, what am I good at? What do I want to do in life? How do I fit into the world? A lot of talent and potential goes unaccounted for in the current system. We must leverage technology and information. There is a lot of information readily available on the internet to help with research and study. Our education system should not restrict learning to within the walls of a lecture room. Students should be allowed to explore experiences and studies on the internet. This would increase the interest in research and research skills. Our educational systems and training should take on practical and real-life approach or simulations in order to prepare students for actual challenges they may face in their respective field of endeavor. If we want our youth to be more effective and productive in the modern world, if we want learning to be effective and engaging, if we want our educational system to impact on our economy, then there's no doubt that transforming our education system is the way to go.
Okay, so right away we're going into our first session for today, and the speaker is Dr. Clement Appiah. He is a senior lecturer at the University of Bremen, and he will be taking us on research and development, a panacea for youth innovation and development in Africa. So sit back, listen, and be inspired. Thank you.
My name is Dr. Clement Appiah. I'm a senior researcher in Bremen University. I'll be taking you through this part of the program on research and development, a panacea for youth innovation and economic development, especially the focus is on Africa. I'm always motivated when I have the privilege to speak to African youth, because I know this is where the world leadership lives or relies on. Research is a very important aspect in academics. In fact, it is the backbone of academia. Without research, education becomes meaningless. And if you really want to see a nation who is developed, you always look up to how developed their research and development is. Every nation tries as much as possible to put in much effort and more energy in promoting their research and development. Research and development is a means where one can say we can foresee the future, that is, the contingencies ahead of us can be noticed through research and development. And this is why it's a very important key role in education. If we look back in the days where development started to increase, that's back in the age where we call the Stone Age, when man started to develop gradually and try to research on the things that God has created, to use those natural product things that we have on earth to change it into things that can promote the earth. We started with the use of cars. Man went ahead, we are using aeroplane. We went ahead using ship, and after some time, man begins to even move a further step ahead. That's why can't we even try to find a planet which is suitable for man to live? They begin to discover the moon as a means of even going to stay there. And this is how research and development can lead one into. It's a very strong backbone of a nation. A nation without a developed research and development is like somebody who can easily be overworked, and you have no say as far as the world economy is concerned. The current inexistence of strong research in Africa has had a tremendous impact on the development of the continent as a whole, especially when it comes to industrialization and continental development. Africa is lacking as a whole. And this is where research and development plays a major key if we want to elevate such situations. And I know the question that will be coming across our minds will be, what then can we do to solve it? You and I play a very key role as far as this situation is concerned. I know we can always rely on the government to enact some laws or to bring in some measures that can promote the situation, but we as a student also has our own role to play. So as we look at what the government can do, we should also consider what the students or what the researchers in the various universities can also enhance. So we can first dive into the aspect of the governmental part, what the government can really do to promote this area of research. I think the first thing that the government of a nation needs is to enhance the manpower ability of its researchers or institutions that are being deployed to carry out these research activities. When you go to Nigeria, I think they have NFDAC or so, and then you go to USA, we have the Food and the FDA, which is almost the same as organization as what we have in Nigeria. But when you check, when you come to African system, you could see that the resources are generally not there. The associations are not financed well in a way that they can carry out their duties autonomously without even relying on people. And this is not the case when it comes to the developed continent. When you take a nation like USA and other developed countries, you could see that they normally do not even rely on the World Health Organization for final ideas as to what to do. Why? Because they have their team who are being resourced, they have their team who has the manpower ability, the team has the necessary people needed for the positions are being created for them to do their work. So they bring out research that they don't have to finally rely on the World Health Organizations to either approve it before they carry on. But here it's not the case in Africa. We have to always rely on the international community as to what to do. But if we can develop our team strongly as a nation, as a continent, that hey, we Africans also have the same brains, and as far as I'm concerned, most of we Africans are even more intelligent than the people that we resort to for ideas. The only thing is we have not developed ourselves as a nation, and that is the downplaying ability that we put on our citizens. But if we can do this as a nation, we will not resort on them for every information as far as our countries are concerned. We need to empower our people, we need to give them the necessary resources so that they can carry out their research independently without the pressure from any group. And one thing that I like about the system of Africa is we instill into ourselves some kind of moral consciousness which no one can take from us. And this is what we need as far as the world is concerned. When you look at the current situation of Corona, you could really see that there's a lot of conspiracy theories going around all over. People bring results and people are debunking it. Some fake results trooping inside. Why? Because man, normally, if you don't have that morality in you, that God-fearing ability in you, you end up to be greedy when situation prevails itself. And that is what used to happen, especially in all these developed nations. You rely on their information thinking that is a God-sent information, but at the end of the day, most of them are being corrupted. Why? Because most of this information comes as a result of people not having that moral consciousness that, oh, what I'm bringing out, what will be the impact. All that people are looking for is their money. People are driven by the love of money. And that becomes a very dangerous situation. But when you check the context of Africa, if even the money, love, ability is there, person is brought up in a community system whereby we think of individuals very well, that you, before a person carry out a dangerous research, he actually would think of what is the consequences. And these are the kind of people, as far as I'm concerned, is needed to pioneer this agenda of research. And that is why we, the youth in Africa, need to stand up boldly and push this agenda in a way that people will jeer into it, and Africa will stand on its feet and be able to do what we are not known for. So, having considered the aspect of the political part, what the government can do, the question we ask ourselves also is what we as an individual can do. What we as the African youth, what we as the educationalists, what can we also do to promote our research? I would say the success of every research is its ability to make impact in the world. This is the most important thing as far as research is concerned. And as far as the world is concerned, now the world is like a global village. If I'm looking for research conducted by a nation, I just go online, I type a topic, and I see the research that has been conducted on that particular issue. And you see the countries which are leading those researches. So one key aspect of Africa showcasing itself in the international scene, telling the world that we are also into research and development, and our research is being strongly pushed, is being conducted in a manner that people can also look into it, is to have that zeal, that passion of publishing our results. And that is a very key role as far as research is concerned. No matter how good your results are, if you don't make them known, if you don't make them available to the world, it becomes useless. Because you don't have any proof tomorrow whatsoever when someone comes and bring out that idea. I have one friend who always used to tell me this, that always try to be the first in doing something. Don't try to be the best. Of course, you can be the best, but aim at being the first. You have the results. What is keeping you holding onto that result? The more you keep it, people are thinking around the clock, day in and day out, and they can easily bring out that same result that you had. And then they become the first in it, and they share all the fame that comes out of those results. So this is something that we as an Africans should instill in us, that we have that consciousness of publishing our results. The students should have this habit in us of publishing results. We should not keep hold to the results. If you keep hold to it, it's just within you and nobody knows what impact it has made. I know in academia is somehow difficult because we also have rules in academia that as a student you cannot go beyond your teacher or your professor to publish a result that he is the one who gave you that particular research to do. This is a fact. I'm not encouraging anyone to do it. It's a criminal offense in academia and you can be sued for that, because the idea is not from you, you cannot do it. But what we have to know is, whilst the professor has given you a topic to research on, he does not control your brain. Your brain is there to go around the clock, to think beyond the box, and then to bring different ideas. These ideas becomes your own personal ideas. It's not from the professor. So when you have a different idea alongside your research that you're doing, nothing prevents you from pushing that idea into a way that it can make impact in the world. And this is what we as African youth should also instill in us. Not just research on one aspect of work that a professor has given to us, but whilst we are doing, we can always also think around the same work or different work to think of what ideas can I also bring into it, what can I do as an individual. This is very important. There is one the school that I attended here, Martin Luther University. There was some other students far back in the olden days, Ziglanata. So these two guys, they were into their research at their PhD level also. And whilst they had a topic given to them by their professor, along the way they also begin to think as a student. Two students came together, oh, I've seen this result, this thing can be used in this aspect of research and it can help the world. And they brought up a chemical compound that made an impact in the world. That the compound they developed became one of the best compounds that you can use to polymerize organic molecules, open the organic molecules, catalyst that helps the reactions to go on. And it was very effective, and they won a Nobel Prize out of this as a student, not as a professor. And that research was genuinely accredited to them, not to their professor, but they had their work also ongoing. So that is how the academia is concerned. You can think beyond the box, bring out your own innovations. Make sure you be the first to showcase the world. Don't try to be the best. People can always develop it as far as research is concerned. If you are waiting to be the best in it, hold on to the result. By the time you realize, people have taken you out of surprise. And this is what I encourage each and every one of us as a youth, to have this idea in ourselves, that we will always try as much as possible to make our results known to the world. You can speak to your professor. If you have a good result, why not? You let your professor know, this result I think is going on this aspect of research. We can make it available. Your professor is always happy to see that you have good ideas like that, and you can make it available. So Africans should instill this kind of mentality in us. And one other important thing that before I end, I have to really speak on is, as a student, as a youth who is trying to move on in academia, we should also have that. I don't know how to put it. Like, at times we feel like, okay, I'm going to make a research. I take the researches which are really easy, I know I can do, and I can have my grade. Most of us in Africa, I studied in Africa, so I know all these things, how it goes around. I had the same mentality. I need my grade, so why would I go to a professor whose research is difficult? Because I want to have the easy one, that I know I will not do anything so difficult. By the end, I will get a good grade. Yes, good grades are important, but it limits you from time to time. Because when you go in for the easy things, you may think, oh, I made a research in this, but at the end of the day, it will not be meaningful in the world. The world now is like everybody is researching aggressively, so the competition is high. So whilst you going for things that are just convenient for you to get grade, you have to know you are limiting your ability to move on, to progress in academia. So as a student, as a youth of Africa, as the future of Africa, try as much as possible sometimes to go for research areas that is a little bit above your ability, that makes you to think. So as a student, as a youth of Africa, as the future of Africa, try as much as possible sometimes to go for research areas that is a little bit above your ability, that makes you to think more. Don't just go for the thing that you already know. Here in Europe, I have a research team which I lead over here in the university, and most of the research we do, I did not study anything related to it. That is how research in Europe is. You just see a vision, or you see something that you think you can do, and then you push it. And the idea is we make collaborations among ourselves. So I will not be able to do everything. I do some aspects of the synthetic work. Some people are doing some investigations, some others are doing some incorporations. So it comes together and then it forms a strong research. That is how it works. And it shouldn't be something that you know everything. You can develop that idea, you can work on it to a point, people can develop it, people can make collaborations with you, and that is where the research makes impact in the society. So don't just think of the easy way. I like this particular man because his research is very easy. When you go there, he also give you the grade and everything becomes easier for you. You have your A, so you feel like it's good. Yes, the A is good, but the A can limit you at the point, because at times it's reach a stage that when I'm looking for a student, I don't even look at the results he has. I look at what he can bring on board. What are the ideas the student has? Can he think beyond the research I've given him? This is what we look for in a student. We don't look for the fact that the student has had all the A's. Yes, you can have all the A's, but your ability to think beyond the box is very low, because you were always used to going for the easy one, so you don't use your brain well to think beyond what has been given to you, and this always limits you. Professors in Europe, professors around the world look into this more than the grade you present to them. The grade can give you opportunity to go for the interview, but in the interview, when we have 5 to 8 people who are being conducted, or 5 to 8 people who are being approved to be interviewed, at that point we don't consider your A's again. This is the point you show to the people on the board that you can think far deeper beyond what is on your results. And this is where it's very important that as an Africans, as a youth, as people that are pushing the agenda of research and development in Africa, we need to have this kind of mentality in us. The man that has the key to the data bank, I would say, has the key to the knowledge, and this is the kind of men we look up to as Africans. This is the kind of man the future of Africa lies on. So, without wasting much of your time, I will say finally that Africa is blessed with people like you and I. We are blessed with people who have the brains. The brains are there. All we need is the manpower ability that will push us, the resources that will push us. And I know as far as the continent is concerned, there is hope and there is future for us. So we should not sit down lackadaisically, and when that dream begins to manifest, we will not be part of it. I entreat each and every one of us as a youth of today to push stronger in our areas of research. Go beyond what has been given to you. Think beyond the box. Make meaningful impact by making a lot of research. Put it across the world. That is where this program, I'm also much keen and happy to be part of it, because we have a platform which is upcoming, which will also treat and encourage students to put their results across, that the world can know. When your results are being published, it doesn't matter whether the impact factor of that publication is low or not. So far as it is known to the world and you are the first to showcase it, when any meaningful thing comes out of it, you are the one they resort to. Don't hold tight to your results trying to be the best, but be the first in doing it. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker will be the Executive Director of the Africa for Africa Youth Initiative, the highly esteemed Mr. Chike Ume, and he'll be talking to us about the Africa for Africa Youth Initiative, our objectives, and some of our programs. So listen.
Hello, it's my pleasure to welcome you and to introduce you to the Africa for Africa Youth Initiative. Now, as the name implies, Africa for Africa Youth Initiative, this is a youth-driven organization. It's a not-for-profit organization. Our man of God, Pastor Chris, once said, Nigeria will be built by Nigerians, while he was addressing young people at a youth conference in Nigeria. And from that word or that statement, we drew the inference that Africa can also only be built by Africa. Think about the fact, you look at all the challenges that bedevil Africa, socio-economic problems, socio-political problems, and many people blame the colonialists, they blame the slave trade, they blame different things as a reason. But the real reason is a lack of quality leadership in Africa. And this has persisted for so many years that many people even think, can these things ever be resolved in our lifetime? But yes, they can, because you are here and I'm here. And we believe that young people are the future, and young people will be the vehicle that will bring the transformation that Africa requires. When you think about the challenges that Africa has, and you think of the fact that Africa is known today to be the youngest continent in the world, the youngest continent in the world, out of little over 1 billion people in Africa, the population, the young people between the ages of 14 to 35, almost 500 million, or over 500 million of that number, 500 million young people within age 14 to 35. We can do so much. We can tap into the energy, the innovation, the ideas, the solutions that are inside these young people, and stop waiting for the generation that is moving on to decide our future. Why Africa for Africa initiative, for youth initiative? Because in Africa, Africa has a lot of socio-political problems, lots of socio-economic problems. And many people wonder, who did it? It's not about who did it, but what we can do about it. And we want to leverage on the energy of our youth, the enterprise of our youth, the innovation of our youth to provide these pertinent solutions and orchestrate the evolution of new, egalitarian, prosperous African economies and societies all across Africa. And we want the young people to be the vanguard leading this charge. We don't need to be at the helm of affairs to effect changes. From where you are, from your community, from your street, from your campus, from your class, from your hostel, you can become the change. You can become the agent bringing about change through the innovations that you have, through your enterprise, and the skills and knowledge and abilities that God has given you, which we will help you hone in. So this is a movement that's going to sweep across the continent, beginning from the university campuses in all the African states. We want to begin to program things to happen in our nations, in our societies, in our communities. That's why we have the Africa for Africa Youth Initiative, and we are glad and thankful to our man of God, Reverend Chris Oyakhilome, for giving us this platform and this privilege and trusting us to do this. We know that African societies and economies will be improved. And as we say in the name, Africa for Africa, it's not Europe for Africa. It's not America for Africa. Those countries, Africa has received a lot of aids from foreign countries that has not helped it. You think about the billions that our different countries have received from foreign countries over the years that hasn't even transformed our societies, because they collect those aids, but there are lots of strings attached to those things sometimes. We need to begin to look at homegrown solutions in our continent, homegrown innovations, homegrown initiatives to bring out ideas that are relevant and connected to the African situation. The Americans are not going to come to solve our road infrastructural problems. When you think about how refuse is handled in Africa, for example, who is going to change those things? Who is going to do something about the refuse dumps and the dirt and the slums across Africa? America is not going to do it. It's not in their interest to do it. But we have the solutions, and that's why this organization exists. We have different programs, different initiatives that we will be running for different things to provide solutions on different areas, and that's where you come in. For instance, when we look at the socio-political problems of Africa, we have some programs, we have some initiatives that will be coming from the Africa for Africa Youth Initiative to proffer pertinent solutions, not only to bring the ideas, but to carry them out. To run them, we have the Africa for Africa School of Government, because we need to begin to raise people to get into the public service, into the civil service, into politics in different countries, but well schooled, so that when they get into those places, they were already prepared for leadership. That's one of the things we want to do. A couple of others will have the Visa Project, voter information and sensitization agenda, because across Africa, many times people don't realize that their vote is their power, and that the people they put in power decide their future and their destinies, and are responsible for the kind of economies and societies we have in Africa. So we need to begin to educate the populace, and the young people can really do that. Your vote is important. Sometimes people think that their vote doesn't matter, but it does matter. If it doesn't matter, the politicians wouldn't spend money campaigning to get you to vote for them. They spend billions sometimes millions, billions, just to get your vote, because your vote does matter. So people need to know that that is their power to determine the future that they have, to determine whether they're going to have a thriving economy, to determine whether they're going to have a stable society. We want to begin from the grassroots through our young people to begin to sensitize and educate our communities, and to teach the young people what to look out for and engage them for voter education. That's one of the things we want to do. We also have what we call the adrenaline concerts. Why are we doing that? We want to use our skills and arts, musical skills, art skills, creative skills, to tell stories about Africa, to highlight certain issues from in different African communities, and in that same event, highlight and show the solutions and the transformation that can happen through those things. So whether we're in Rwanda or Kenya or Ghana or Cameroon, the adrenaline programs will be relevant to the story, to the history, to the evolution of that particular country. And that's where you come in. It doesn't matter the country you are in. Once it's in Africa, you are in this bandwagon. And there's lots more made in Africa and so many other initiatives. You can get on the website www.africaforafrica.org. You'll find some of the programs listed there and what the initiative is about. But there's more that's not on the website. And as this launches where you are and we begin to roll, you start finding out more and more that you can be a part of. And of course, we're open to your ideas, because we know that inside each one of you listening to me now is a world of possible solutions. And Africa for Africa gives you the platform to bring those solutions so that we can leverage on them and change our communities across Africa, because Africa has everything it takes to be a world leader. It's been an underdog for too long. But now, with a massive population of young people, we can decide to make Africa a world leader in the next few years. That's why you're here in Africa for Africa Youth Initiative. So I congratulate you on the future that we're going to create together for our continent. So let your ideas come. We also have something for innovations, because we believe that Africa can be the global leader in technology, in innovations. So there are programs we're going to do and initiatives we're going to carry out to encourage innovation, to recognize the innovations that some of our young people have done. Many people in our universities, amaze you, have done some research that's lying somewhere gathering dust, because the authorities are not interested, the leadership is not interested. We want to do something about those things. Research projects, innovations from our young people, to bring them to light, to encourage and drive the energy of competition in the area of innovations. We need homegrown solutions to our challenges. We need homegrown solutions to the refuse problem in Africa. We need homegrown solutions to the infrastructural deficit in African communities. We need homegrown solutions to crime. We need homegrown solutions to our education needs to have reference to the African situation. Sometimes in our different countries, we're reading and using the curriculum given to us by foreign countries, or the curriculum that was dropped behind for us by the colonialists, to produce people that are physically strong but mentally weak. And that's the reason Africa is poor. Not because Africa doesn't have resources. Africa is blessed richly with tremendous resources. So Africa as a continent is not poor, but the people are poor because they are mentally poor. And why are they mentally poor? Because of the kind of education that was handed over to them. An education that is meant to weaken the mind and make them seek for jobs created by other people and never innovate. But it's the era of innovation, and Africa for Africa Youth Initiative is also here to encourage innovations through certain programs that we intend to run. We have a Startup and Innovations Initiative that will be run through Africa for Africa, and it's coming all around to the country where you are. So this is something big, and we're taking in more ideas. So as thoughts come to you, you can bring it on board, and it will flow in Africa for Africa. We want to leverage on our network of young people to do something that will produce positive new outcomes for our continent. We want to change the African narrative. In different places, they look at Africans somehow. They look down on us. They call us the shit continent. Brothers and sisters, are we a shit continent? The answer is certainly no. But that's the stereotype they've given Africans. Once you're black skin from Africa, it's like there's a problem. But we need to change the narrative. When they show Africa on foreign media, they try to show the slums. They try to show hungry people with flies flying around their faces as though there's nothing good here. We've got to tell our story ourselves. We've got to highlight the things that are good, and we've got to embark on new innovations that will challenge the world outside there. That's what Africa for Africa is about. To orchestrate, as we say, maybe you look down here, it's to orchestrate the evolution of egalitarian African societies with thriving economies catalyzed by self-initiated and innovative solutions. Self-initiated and innovative. So the solutions will come from Africa. It's not going to come from America. The medical things will come from Africa. We can give the world something. Remember, where a problem is, usually is where the solutions come from. So if Africa has all these challenges, then Africa has a lot of solution to bring to this world. And we are already on the go on this. We also have another program, the dialogue. These are intelligent debates to examine critical issues in Africa and highlight what the issues are and bring out the solutions in these kind of debates. Very intelligent debates, and they'll be national, and the nation will get to know about it, And we have Africa for Africa documentaries as well. We're going to do some documentary recordings about certain sectors in different countries, highlight what the situation is and all that, and create the best practices and the solutions that are possible for those things, and make the government and the leaders see it and adopt it. We're going to get some of these big companies to fund the innovations that we have that will solve Africa's problems. And that's where you come in. So I know that ideas are bubbling inside you, and this platform is your platform. The thoughts and solutions coming to you channel, this is the vehicle that you can bring them in through. So it's just starting, and there's a lot more that's there. This is the biggest movement that Africa has ever seen. And I know that in time to come, 20 years, 25 years, when the story is different countries in Africa will recognize the role that Africa for Africa Youth Initiative played in the evolution of better societies, and they will have you to think. So get on the bandwagon and be a part of this. So what more can you do, you may ask? We also have, under the Africa for Africa Youth Initiative, we have the Africa for Africa Youth Forum, and that's an umbrella body that brings all the beneficiaries and participants and members of the Africa for Africa Youth Initiative under an umbrella body. So that's one thing you can do. Today, sign up, register under the Africa for Africa Youth Forum. We're going to have chapters of Africa for Africa Youth Forum in every university campus. Okay, so you can start out in your campus, the Africa for Africa Youth Forum, and you get registered there. Encourage other people to register as members of Africa for Africa Youth Forum, because that's the medium, the membership forum, from where we're going to drive a lot of what we want to do, and most of the first beneficiaries of some of the things we want to do will be those who are under the Africa for Africa Youth Forum. So register there today. Get to the website again, www.africaforafrica.org, and you'll find information on the Africa for Africa Youth Forum. Register there, and then the chapter can start in your campus, in your city, in your street. What do we want to do with that? We want you to internalize the vision. Okay? A candle loses nothing when it lights up another candle, and that's the idea behind the Africa for Africa Youth Forum. You are a candle, and the best thing you can do as a candle is to light another candle. And that candle lights another candle, 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 and before you know what's happening, the whole place is well lit up. So through the Africa for Africa Youth Forum, we want you to understand the vision of the Africa for Africa Youth Initiative and become a walking mobile vision. You now become the vision, so that in your street, you are the change. In your estate, you are the change. In your hostel, in your class, you are now the voice of Africa for Africa. You are now the representative wherever you are. That's the idea. So that wherever you are, you're carrying out works, you're taking initiative, you're bringing solutions, you're birthing innovations. So sign up today under the Africa for Africa Youth Forum. Get to the website and do that now. We're on a membership drive currently, and once you are a member there are different materials and information that will be coming to you from time to time about what to do. And of course, we have our regional representatives and country representatives who report directly to the international office, from where directives and coordination of our activities across Africa are carried out. So we're looking forward to a beautiful, long, wonderful journey of transforming our continent. And if you look here at the logo, maybe I explained that to you. In the logo, this is the former Africa for Africa Youth Initiative logo. Here you can see most of the colors here are brown, dark brown, lighter brown, yellowish, and some white. These are the dominant colors in Africa. Most Africans are dark colored in their skin, but we do have some white Africans, so we have some white so that they don't feel left out. So the color is Africa's color. And then you can see these two figurines. These represent us. These two figurines represent me, represents you, represents every young person in Africa. And you can see their hands are raised up. That means victory. They believe in the future of Africa like you do and I do. And here's the map of Africa. You can see the palm print, the print of a palm. And that's the print of the palm of a young person. Okay? And you can see this is a light bulb and it's glowing. What are we saying? The Bible says the hand of the diligent shall bear rule. So this logo means that by the hand and diligence of African youths, Africa will be a light to the nations of the world. And that's exactly what we want it to be. We don't want to be collecting foreign aids. We don't want to be buying foreign goods made in America, made in China. We want to change our continent. And this generation is that generation that will decide to do that. And let's change our societies, both politically, economically, and otherwise. And to do all that, education is very important. And education is in different types. There are different types of education. So I can't say all of that in this short video. What I do know, once we get started, you understand where we're going. And I want you to buy the vision, get it into you, and start running with it. Thank you very much for being a part of Africa for Africa Youth Initiative. And one other thing you can do, get on King's Chat now. If you don't have King's Chat, download it. Get on King's Chat and take a picture of yourself, post it there with hashtag Africa for Africa. Okay? Do that now and reshare it, spread it. You are what we call an A4A youth. A for A. A4A. Africa for Africa youth. Let's get going. Thank you very much for listening and enjoy the rest of today's event. God bless you and I love you.
Hello and welcome to the Adrenaline Musical Movie Concert.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this segment of the Africa Development Discourse organized by the Africa for Africa Youth Initiative. Now, today we are celebrating the Africa Day. Today, May 25th, we're celebrating the Africa Day. And this segment is a live discourse between members of the Africa for Africa Youth Forum. I have with me guests from 5 African nations. With me here is Fortune Hato from Nigeria. I have Anita Amwa from Ghana. I have Delight Terera from Zimbabwe. Also Matilda Kaunde from Uganda. David Kato from Nigeria. And Laura Mukwana from Kenya. You're welcome, everyone. Before we continue, I'd like to say a very big thank you to our highly esteemed director, the executive director of the Africa for Africa Youth Initiative. Thank you, sir, for this opportunity you've given to us to handle this segment of the program. And thank you for the impact you have in the life of youths all around the world and in Africa especially. We're most grateful, sir. So today, we're going to be talking about the theme of this program, which is an educational system that drives producing economies, connecting classroom to industries. We're going to be talking about this from the perspective of youth, the student perspective. You know, we all know that Africa made progress so far. Africa is not where she used to be, years ago. A lot of African nations have had some tremendous improvement in their economic system, remarkable growth in the economic system. However, this cannot be compared to what is obtainable in other continents all around the world. And so, according to the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, they have reported that Africa contributes just about 1.5% globally to the manufacturing output, the global manufacturing output. And that is quite low. If you compare this to what is obtainable in Europe, is a far cry. Europe currently contributes about 24.7% of the global manufacturing output. Now, I'm going to start from you, Mr. Fortune Hato. I want you to talk to us. We're going to be looking at some of the challenges that hamper the productivity of youth, especially in their fields or areas of study. First of all, it is a very predominant case that a lot of young people that seek admission in universities are given courses that they do not or they did not apply for. We want to know, how does this affect their productivity? And also, I want you to talk about how some youths, while in school, they tend to forget everything that they learned immediately after they finish writing their exam. So I'd like you to address these 2 issues, Mr. Fortune. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. It's a very big privilege to be addressing this point. First of all, there are many reasons for which a person's, initial interest in a course of study might be altered. First of all, it might be by virtue of parental influence, and there are many other factors that could exist. But basically, addressing your point, yes, it does hamper productivity because passion is what drives productivity, and the choices that we make as individuals are based on our inclinations and our perceived strengths. So when a person decides that, for example, he wants to study medicine and is given a course that's either very much unrelated or partially related to medicine, there's going to be an adverse effect, a significant adverse effect on the person's productivity in this newfound area of interest that might not be so what drives that particular person's passion. So that's the first point. Then the second one as to why we have many young people who study, who go to school and come out, and at the end, especially after examinations, they write examinations and they come out and they can barely remember all that they have been taught or that they sat for. Now, the problem is there are many underlying factors that could exist. First of all, there could be some psychological problems, maybe amnesia, asphyxia, or ADHD that, we're in a part of the world where we don't pay much attention to mental health. So all these things can exist. There can be possible reasons why a person's retention is not at optimal level. Then secondly, also, the individual might have an overcrowded memory, and there are many reasons that could be responsible for this. For example, you have 7 examinations lined up in the course of a week, and you have to read up and model everything up in your head. At the end of the day, you find that all this information, they do not register in your long-term memory. And then after the examination, because you literally just study to pass all the series of examinations, and after those examinations, you might not be able to remember all that you were taught. So this is a very important factor that I think we should look at. Then also, there's the issue of underutility and underlearning, because there are two pillars of a successful learning system. First of all, there's the theoretical aspect, and then there's the practical aspect. Now, if too much reliance is paid to the theoretical aspect of learning, which is a sad reality in Africa, you find that what you don't practice, you can't have a mastery over it. You mainly just learn the theories and learn the ideas, learn the formulas and everything. But when you don't put them into practice, over a course of time, they will leave your hands and they will leave your memory. So these are the reasons: underutility, underlying mental illnesses, and all that. That's what I think might be the cause of this particular problem.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Fortune. Very wonderful points you've made out there. As a follow-up, I'd like Anita to add up to what Mr. Fortune have said. I'd like you to address the issue, the predominant issue of lack of poor practical facilities in our education system. How does this affect the competence of the graduates that are produced in the system? Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for the opportunity to be part of this discussion. Getting theoretical knowledge has no value until students can apply its practical purposes. Practical approach to learning cannot be overemphasized in our tertiary institutions. We all know that when you do something with your own hands, you remember it better. Practicality promotes experiential learning and encourages self-learning. It leads to perfection and complements the theory aspect of what we learn in class, thereby making the student independent and increased confidence. For instance, imagine a photojournalism class with over 150 plus students learning with just one camera. They wouldn't be able to get the experiential knowledge that they need to have on the job market. Therefore, the impact of poor practical approach to learning will cost the students their confidence, their inability to be independent on the job market, and it will also hinder their ability to innovate, invent, and implement. And this will definitely not drive producing economies in our part of the world, connecting the classroom to our industries. Thank you very much.
Oh, very wonderful, very wonderful. Thank you very much, Anita, for that one. I would like Matilda to talk to us. What can we do as youths? What can we do as young people, with the predominant situations, with the obvious challenges we have in our educational system? What more can we do to improve our knowledge in a specific field of study? Talk to us about it.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir, for the opportunity. And to add more knowledge to yourself in regards to the field of study that you are partaking as an individual in a tertiary institution, first and foremost, you've got to read. One thing cannot be ignored: the fact that we have information everywhere in this new generation. Information is everywhere, and the only way to tap into that information is through reading. And to add on to that, you are as good as the last book that you read as an individual. So keeping that in mind, it should stir us, the youths, to read and also get more information on the things that we are being taught in class. Because I can imagine that the lecturer gives you 30%, and that means the rest of the percentage is supposed to vet it for yourself. Well, another point would be research. There is nothing at all that ever starts without research, be it a business, be it maybe a course that you're undertaking. Once you apply research onto it, then you are in better position to acquire more knowledge to add on to what you are being given in class. Another point could be practicing. Well, this would do away with cases where we have people graduating from universities and they cannot really do that which they were practicing in school or that which they were studying in school. For example, if I'm a farmer, or if I've been doing agriculture, then that means if during holidays I can do some practicing of agriculture. If I've been doing business in school, all the information that I have, I should be able to put to practice all that we learned. Be in position to make a business plan. I should be in position to do branding and everything that is entailed in being higher than us. Because I believe that if we take a hold of this vertical and horizontal relationship, then we'll be in better position to get help from, to help those that are below us, to ensure that we all pull each other up, hence getting information. What can we do to acquire skill, about one thing I know for sure that really helps is mentorship. Mentorship is something that most people do not attend to, but once we are to open ourselves to and also be receptive to mentorship, then we'd be in better position to become.
Wow. Thank you very much, Matilda. Thank you very much, Matilda.
People. And also, in addition to that,
okay, Matilda. Let me cut you there. Thank you very much. You made some.
One may ask, how do I get in for identify that? Let us embrace mentorship. Sorry.
All right. Talk to us, like.
Thank you so much, sir, for the question and for the opportunity to be on this platform. Now, the question is, what more can we do as youths to acquire skills that will make us more relevant and to also challenge the status quo of our education system? It brings to mind the thought that, when we are talking about driving an education system that drives a producing economy, the first aspect that comes to mind is also the fact that the education system it has to. Hello, sir.
I can hear you now. Your network was breaking.
Okay, thank you. So I was saying that it brings to mind the fact that there has to be a direct link between the education system itself and the economic challenges that are being faced by a particular country. That is to say that the graduates or the students that are produced by the education system have to be students that are ready to address, have the that a particular country or a particular economy is facing. And now bringing it home to say, what should we do as the youth, as the students that are in the school? We are saying that there has to be a change of the mindset, because many of the students are in school because they want to get the paper, they want to get the degree, they want to pass. We're studying to pass, we're studying to get the degree, but we need to change our mind. And understanding youths, we are ultimately the future of Africa or the future of our particular countries. So we need to take responsibility and go the extra mile beyond what we are being taught in class. You understand that this is my responsibility. I'm the one to build my country, so I have to study, I have to go on the internet. I appreciate the fact that Sister Matilda have applauded to the fact that our generation were exposed to information because we have the internet. So you can go ahead and research, but it comes from a mindset of understanding that you're the one that is responsible for building your country. You're the one that is responsible for your country. So, yeah, I'd like to highlight mindset and then taking it to a practical aspect of saying that the internet is available. You can research, and you can get a course. You can study a course online, and you can, when you understand the problems that are being faced in your country beyond the study, the course that you're studying in school, you can go ahead and acquire an extra course on the side, bearing in mind that you're the one responsible for the future. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Having established this fact, we cannot talk about producing economy, a producing economy without talking about innovation. Innovation is what drives an economy to become a manufacturing economy, a productive economy. But a lot of people have different ideas about innovations. I'd like you to school us a bit. Talk to us. What are your thoughts about innovation? What is innovation? What stirs up innovation? What triggers innovation? And what does it cost to be innovative?
Thank you so much, sir. So innovation can simply be defined as translating an idea or an invention into a good into something that creates value for society. So that brings up two aspects. An innovation can be something coming up with a totally different idea, or it can be improving something that's already existing. And for something to be called an innovation, it has to be replicable at an economic cost, and it has to satisfy a specific need. So when it comes to what is the cost of being innovative, it's very simple. You have to be if I can give the example of the education field, because that is the focus of this discussion. There's a need for us to be open-minded. For you to be creative, you need to be open-minded, you need to be patient, you need to be curious, so that you can be able to come up with different kind of ideas, so that you can be able to see and examine how you can improve existing systems, existing processes, existing models of education. So lastly, when it comes to what triggers innovation, it's quite simple. It's triggered primarily by the need to satisfy a specific need. And many things can trigger that need, that feeling and that desire. That can be due to curiosity. Like someone is just curious and they're thinking, oh, this needs to be improved. How can I make this work better? Like in this field that we're talking about, the education field. So how can we make learning better for the learners? How can we make it more practical? How can we make it more innovative, basically? It can be triggered by frustration. This is not working. The system we have is not working. What can we do to improve it? What can we do to change it? It can be triggered by even fear. Like a great example is now what's going on. Innovations are coming up due to fear. People are scared of maybe a pandemic, and they're now thinking about innovations. How can we get out of this? So basically, those are the things that trigger innovation. Thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you very much. That's very apt, precise, and concise. Thank you so very much. And talking about innovation also, I would like David Cato to throw more light on this. On a larger scale, if I have an idea, if I have a new idea, an innovative idea, I want to go about it myself. If I have some limitations, in area of financing, or I'm not able to carry out every aspect of that innovation, should I be scared of bringing in someone, bringing a friend in the same field? Should I be scared of collaborating with people to help me or to help us to achieve this common goal? Talk to us about that, and also cite some examples of some nations or individuals who, through collaboration, have been able to do massive things, big things that have improved their nation or their continent, as it were. Thank you, David.
Thank you very much. We need to realize that the world has gone global, and because of the globalization, it has increased interdependency amongst different countries. It has also increased interdependency amongst different disciplines, and it's very, very imperative to note that innovations actually cannot function or come about without a certain level of collaboration, which will help us to draw ideas from different pools of disciplines, and also draw resources together to see how we want to carry out the innovation. So for countries that have succeeded, or examples of people that have carried out collaborative research or collaborated on different innovations to move their nations or societies forward, we could look at Israel, for instance, a country of just 7.1 million, and is surrounded by enemies all around. but it's on record that Israel produces more startups than any country in the world. Now, a research has shown that these startups could be linked to the mandatory military training that the youths are made to go through, where they learn skills together and then develop a sort of network amongst themselves, teams amongst themselves, where they work together. And when they are done from there, they shift the ideas that they get from working together and launch them up as startups. And that is why you have high-tech companies coming up everywhere in Israel. We could also look at Silicon Valley, where you had companies like Apple, Facebook, Google, all based there, and also other high-tech companies, and about 30 Fortune 100 companies are based in Silicon Valley. Now, the success behind these companies, the success behind these individuals, it's because they are willing to collaborate at some point with persons from different disciplines and different sectors to make their ideas work. We could also look at the Singapore story. Their former Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew at some point realized that he had some very brilliant chaps who are good with manufacturing. But these guys didn't have the money to set up the companies they needed. They didn't have the resources to process the raw materials for the different innovations they had. And what did he do? He linked them up with multinational companies from the USA. And that is why today you have a huge chunk of electronics being developed in Singapore. So for innovations to work, youths must learn to collaborate. And this could start right from class by doing group work together, group assignments, group projects together. And this would go a long way in pushing our innovations out there. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so very much, David Carter, for enlightening us on that. So because of time, we're going to wrap up here. We hope that you've been able to learn something from this. Thank you so very much. Once again, I want to say thank you to our esteemed director for this opportunity. Thank you.
Right now, we'll go over to our keynote speaker in the person of Dr. Daniel Daw, the course advisor and also a lecturer in Western Sydney University. And he'll be speaking on the educational system that drives producing economies, connecting the classroom to the industry. So listen and be inspired. Thank you.
Hello everyone. I'm grateful to the Africa for Africa Youth Initiative for the honor as a guest speaker in this year's edition of the Africa Development Discourse. The theme for this year's event is the education system that drives producing economies, connecting classroom to industry. The choice of this theme couldn't have come at any better time as this, when humanity is looking for answers to human problems. My grandmother used to tell me that it is the storm that shows where to create the door. As a continent and as a people, we have faced a series of challenges that I do not need to reiterate on this occasion. However, I do need to acknowledge the growing danger of unemployment rates among young people across the continent, especially among university graduates, and the need to address the issues dispassionately by creating the door that we so much need. I have had the privilege of teaching as a primary school teacher and a secondary school teacher many years ago, and as a university teacher now. I also had the opportunity to work in industry, which gives me some insight into the synergy between education and industry. Indeed, the frontiers of higher education are changing globally, and there are emerging questions about how teaching and learning can translate into building critical thinking and problem-solving skills to improve graduate employability. A key emerging question is, to what extent are our classrooms connecting to industries across the continent to improve graduate employability? Another question is, how big is the industry in Africa, and how many graduates are turned out annually, raising demand and supply concerns? First, let's consider the magnitude of youth unemployment problem across the continent. There is hardly any consistent data on graduate unemployment in Africa, but from where we come from, within the continent, we know how impossible it has become to find a decent job after completing a university degree. I don't want to sound boring with statistics. However, permit me to note that whereas the ILO's Global Employment Trend for Youth 2020 estimates youth unemployment rate at 8.7% compared to the global figure of 13.6%, there are indications that the rate could be much higher, especially for university graduates, with significant variations across the different countries. Northern Africa, for example, has the highest rate of youth unemployment at 30.2%. So, clearly, we have an issue of graduate unemployment to deal with. But the challenges of youth unemployment goes beyond a demand and a supply issue to also include structural and systemic challenges. And discussions about structural and systemic challenges are outside the scope of my address today. I would like to address the subject of graduate employability and to connect the dots to the opportunities we have as a continent and as a people to deal with this danger of graduate unemployment. And I will consider 3 dimensions to the issue of graduate employability. One, that the graduate has developed the skills and ability to obtain and maintain employment. 2, that the graduate has developed the capacity to independently or collaboratively create and maintain unemployment. And 3, that both the classroom and industry have collaborated and contributed to the development of the graduate. Unfortunately, for a long time, we have all been programmed to aspire into the first dimension of employability, where we are all looking up to somebody, the government or an agency, to employ us if we fit their purpose once we complete a degree program. Very few, if any, aspire to the second dimension, where we seek to create and maintain our own jobs and employ others. Unfortunately, the first and the second dimensions are dependent on the third. That is the extent to which both the classroom and industry have collaboratively contributed to building the critical thinking and problem-solving skills that is required to survive in the world of work, whether for someone or for self. So, who owns the problem? The issue of making graduate employable is a complex and multifaceted one. It is unfair to blame any specific sector for the difficulties our young people face in finding or creating decent jobs after completing a university. However, I understand as a teacher that every good training is driven by a good curriculum and an innovative teaching strategy. The question remains, how relevant is our teaching curricula to industry? What contributions have the relevant industries made to the design of university teaching curricula? And 3, how prepared is industry to participate in graduate training through credit-based field placement and internships? We cannot fully answer these questions in this address. However, as we can see clearly, there are gaps in industry and classroom interactions, and both industry and classroom continue to blame each other over the lack of responsiveness. Young people have become victims of this tough war between industry and the classroom, and who does what. Just the other day, I heard an employer took a swipe at universities for turning out unemployable graduates. And I asked, so what did you do to contribute to the training of the graduates to fit for your purpose in the first place? So you see, the issues have many faces, some of which you may discuss in this forum. Overall, it is my view that the heart, head, hand, and feet model of training is paramount. Yet, we have specialized in the head, and we continue to develop the theoretical knowledge with very little attention to tangible skills, that is the hand. Very little attention to the heart, that's the values and ethics of work, and of the feet, that's the context of adaptation. I would like to close this address by stating that we have an opportunity as a people, and our strength lies in the population of young people, which is by far the largest in the world. We are strong, vibrant, and we have the competitive advantage to transform our economies. There is a need for a common forum for education providers, in my view, and industry players across the continent to take a critical look at specific discipline-based curricula and to harmonize industry needs and what the classroom can deliver. This way, the systems talk to each other. To my fellow young people, I think I am still young. Can you imagine the change we can make if 1 out of 3 aspire to create and maintain our own jobs after graduation? That is possible. We can step outside our classroom training and explore tangible skill-based activities, including volunteering services in industries of interest. It's just a matter of time and you can become an employer, and you would employ me and other colleagues of ours. I have deliberately left out any discussions about government and the other structural barriers of graduate unemployment issues across the continent at this point. Rather, I think we should first look inward and carefully reflect on what we can change. Ask young people what we can do, what can we do while our educational system takes steps to introduce industry-relevant curricula. We have a duty to ourselves and to the next generation by exploring tangible skills-based training opportunities beyond the classroom. We need to make ourselves available for volunteering and field practice and internship opportunities. For governments, I believe that as young people, we create our future by creating the kind of government we want. If we have our fundamentals right, we can determine who and what governs us. Until then, let's focus on the little things we can achieve and work towards the bigger dreams. The future is still in our hands as young people. From now on, we call the shot. I challenge you to look beyond self and embrace the bigger picture of a change maker. I wish you well in everything you do, and God bless you.
Wow. What an enlightening lecture we've just had and very inspiring. First of all, I want to say a big thank you to all our speakers. Thank you, sirs. Thank you for inspiring us with the investment of your personality. And I want to say a big thank you to all our delegates who have participated from all around Africa. I believe that you have been inspired. I believe that you have learned a lot. And my prayer is that we are going to work together to build the Africa of our dreams. So I want to encourage you, first of all, follow us on our Africa for Africa Twitter handle, Instagram handle, Facebook, and join the Africa for Africa forum, where you'll be getting updates of our various programs and projects. So thank you once again for participating in this program. Thank you for giving us your attention, and I know together we'll build the Africa of our dreams. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Africa, a beautiful continent, richly endowed with so much potential, mineral resources, and immense wealth in its people. Yet, this continent, with all its beauty and endowment, has largely been an underdog, and there's so much blame to pass around. Who done it, they say? With roughly 500 million of its population under the age of 35, Africa is currently the world's youngest continent. What are we going to do with this? We must change the African narrative. We must engage to orchestrate new and positive outcomes and solve the socio-political and socio-economic problems of the continent. So you're young, on campus, want to be the change? Join the vanguard. Introducing the Africa for Africa Youth Initiative, maximizing Africa's resources.
Gold, iron, cobalt, uranium, copper, bauxite, silver, rubber, wood, petroleum, and lots more. This quite naturally should translate to an economic boom, especially when Africa's youth population is factored into the equation. Youth in Africa constitutes 19% of the global youth population, more than youth percentage of Europe. Africa is, however, largely underdeveloped economically. Of the nearly 600 million youths in Africa, 60% do not contribute to the economy. The state of economic underdevelopment in Africa is not due to a lack of capital, but because of a lack of knowledge and skills to enhance productivity and increase national output. The only veritable tool to change this narrative and ensure Africa maximizes its abundance of resources and experiences an economic transformation is education. Economically successful continents hold advantages over Africa, and like all successful corporations, education and training are big reasons why. A well-trained population tends to produce more and ensure a healthy economy. A nation with a more educated population will see their economy grow faster. Investment in education is investment in human capital development. Economic growth depends on the knowledge and skills of the labor supply. Economies with more skilled laborers capitalize on the development of more value-added industries like high-tech manufacturing. This is sadly not the case in Africa. Education in Africa at the moment is not qualitative enough to produce the requisite workforce to harness Africa's resources. With problems of poor quality environment like infrastructure, overcrowding, violence, sanitation, poor quality content like outdated curriculum and inadequate materials, and poor quality processes like the use of untrained teachers and poor school management, the human capital of Africa is largely underdeveloped and labor supply is not operations ready after completing their education. Economic transformation continues to elude the African continent mainly because of human capital constraints in form of knowledge, skills and technical know-how to exploit natural resources and promote economic growth. Formal education and training systems in Africa need to become adaptable to the changing needs of society in order to capture and sustain student interest and supply operations-ready labor force to the economies of African nations. How can Africa transform its education in order to deliver a labor force that effectively impacts on the economy? Changing the educational system. The world today is changing rapidly, but our curriculum has stayed the same. The current system of education was designed in the industrial age mainly to produce factory workers. This industrial age mentality of mass control and mass production is still embedded in our education system. Students are rewarded for doing exactly as they are told. In today's world, you can only go so far by simply doing as you are told. The modern world places a high value on creativity and the ability to clearly communicate ideas and collaborate with others. Our education system needs to be restructured to help develop these skills and independent thought. Our education system does not allow for autonomy and independence in decision making. In the real world, every individual manages their time with regards to what to do and when to do it. In our education system, students are expected to follow strictly what is laid down for them to do, and this creates a conditioning of the mind that breeds boredom and demotivation towards academia. Our system of education should be structured to create autonomy, as that is one of the hallmarks of successful individuals. The standardization of our education system means that every individual learns the same thing, same time, and in the same manner. This standardized system has no regard for the uniqueness of each individual. Every individual has unique passions and interests. The education system should be restructured to enable students find and develop their passions. The education system should help each individual answer basic questions like, what am I good at? What do I want to do in life? How do I fit into the world? A lot of talent and potential goes unaccounted for in the current system. We must leverage technology and information. There is a lot of information readily available on the internet to help with research and study. Our education system should not restrict learning to within the walls of a lecture room. Students should be allowed to explore experiences and studies on the internet. This would increase the interest in research and research skills. Our educational systems and training should take on practical and real-life approach or simulations in order to prepare students for actual challenges they may face in their respective field of endeavor. If we want our youth to be more effective and productive in the modern world, if we want learning to be effective and engaging, if we want our educational system to impact on our economy, then there's no doubt that transforming our education system is the way to go.